We've been on the line for almost 20 minutes at this point, and all we've been discussing is logistics and schedule for our next 3 episodes.
Hey, it's a real gig. I mean, this time of the year is crazy, but we have to plan like this because our like top of the year is like the most like real formal podcasting that we do because we have like actual traditions.
That's true. Yeah, we have consistent topics that we do around the same time every year. And I think we're coming up on, the 4th annual of one of these? Maybe? 3rd? 4th? I don't know.
I think it's the 4th. Wow. Yeah, I mean, we're coming up on our 4th annual video game spending recap for our year. So every year, Chris and I put together all of the money that we spent on video games for the year, and we either cry or laugh or weep or
regret,
whatever. Like regret. Yeah, I mean, are there happy emotions? Like there are certain, I guess sometimes.
Some would say laughing is a happy emotion, but that's subjective.
It's just, I don't know. Every year is a surprise. As a little teaser, I think people will be surprised by some of the things we reveal this year. That's coming up. I think we have these dates, right, Chris?
Yeah, we can announce the dates for our next several episodes. Well, it's pretty obvious. They're going to be every other Thursday because that's what we do, except for last week, but don't worry about it. But yes, we have the dates. So this episode will come out on December 21st. The next episode will come out on January 4th, and that will not be the spending episode. That will be a look back at 2023 and a look forward to 2024, what we're most excited about, what we're looking forward to. Maybe we'll grade our excitement from last year and see if we're still excited about the things that we were excited about a year ago. I think that's a good idea. And then the following 2 weeks, so on the 18th of January, the spending year in review episode will come out for 2023. The 4th annual.
The 4th annual.
So that's kind of a little peek towards what we're looking at. And due to some, travel plans and whatever else, some of those there's some movie magic going on with recording schedules and whatnot, but you don't have to worry about that. They'll just show up in your podcast player on time as usual.
You're welcome. Welcome to Pride and Accomplishment. My name is Jason.
And I'm Chris. This is episode 116.
In the same breath as the schedules for next year, I guess this episode's kind of coming around to Christmas. So Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate.
We'll say the next one and the next one. So, Happy New Year. We'll save that.
Yeah. It's the New Year will have passed by the time our next episode comes out, but that's fine.
In a bit of follow up. So it was a little weird because we recorded the video game award show in the middle of there. So we didn't really do a whole lot of like talking about what we're playing or whatnot. It was very focused and that happens. That's okay. But so the last time we talked, we were talking about World of Warcraft, and I'm here today to eat my words. Because if you remember to the last episode where we talked about what we're playing, I said, World of Warcraft, that BlizzCon, that was really cool. I'll play when the expansion comes out.
Yes, we all heard it. Jason said, I'm not going to touch World of Warcraft until the next expansion.
Yeah, I did say that. But, Chris is really convincing, and some other people were playing it, and a lot of people were getting back into it. And I'll say, what this all means to me is that BlizzCon works as a marketing strategy because a bunch of people got excited for World of Warcraft. A bunch of people got back into it. It's a good time because the season kind of had just started, like the next season, whatever. So here I am eating my words. I am playing WoW in season 3 of Dragonflight. It is pretty good. It's as I remember. I'm enjoying it. I don't think it's going to last as long as like season 1, like when we first got into it, mostly because it's easier. Like it's way easier. So like the ramp up to like, okay, well now what? Like, right. That like, what do I do now? Is I think going to happen a little faster. On the flip side, it also makes the argument to do alts a little bit more appealing. So I don't know where I'm going to sit in all that. I don't know how long we're going to be in it, but I am playing it. I am enjoying it. And Chris, I think you generally are too.
Yeah, we've been playing for, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks at this point, and I had a really funny situation happen to me with my subscription. So I think our subs are a little bit out of line because I did go with a 1 month subscription this time, but for some reason I had canceled my 6 month subscription from way back when, from like June or whatever, and it was showing me on the app that it was going to expire on a certain date, and that happened like 3 or 4 times, and it just kept working and kept letting me log in, and I don't know why. It would say like, oh, 20 hours left, and then the next day it would say, oh, 2 days left, and the next day, like the 2 days later, it would say like, oh, 3 days left, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to keep doing this until they make me pay. So I did that.
I'm not going to give you more money.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but yes, I have learned, and I've gone with the month to month, and I think you're right that this one won't last quite as long as a previous stint. Because this might be the last like content patch coming for Dragonflight, or maybe there'll be one more kind of mini season from the dungeons. We don't really know. They did that with one of the more recent. I think it was Shadowlands. Yeah, I think it was Shadowlands.
Yeah,
they did like a 4th patch, but it wasn't really a new thing. They did some like reworking of some dungeons and some like reworking of the raids and stuff like that, just to kind of keep people interested. I don't think we're going to see that this time. I think they're really just going to push for that next expansion, but we'll see. I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. It is easier, but I'm okay with that. Like, I don't need it to be mega challenging at the moment, and there certainly is hard enough content. Like there are harder things to do than what we have done, and we're not topping out yet, so I'm fine with it. For people that are curious, I have finished the normal raid, and I'm halfway through heroic, I think. And we did the normal raid the other day, and Jason was tanking it for the very first time and did great, learning the fights as we went. So that gives you a hint for kind of how relatively easy this season is, and this raid is, compared to the previous one where we had to kind of study up a little bit and do a little bit more learning, I would say. Yeah,
let's be clear about this, right? Like, I was probably right at the right eye level, I would say, for normal, maybe a little high. But I was still getting gear that was an improvement of what I had. So like, I'm right there. Like I'm right at the correct level. The first season we played, Chris, we lost count on how many pulls it took to get the last boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. It took more than one session.
Easily, yes.
Nothing in our, like, we did all of normal one night, 2.5, 3 hours, whatever. Nothing took more than 3 pulls. And I don't think anything took more than 1 pull except for the last 2 bosses.
Yeah, that was a major departure from the first raid. But I think that's always how it is in the first raid of an expansion, if I'm remembering correctly. And I know you haven't been there, but I think they make kind of a bigger jump so that your stuff from the previous season, unless you were doing like attempts at mythic raiding, the previous stuff falls off pretty well because, oh no, that's right, because you got to do all the leveling stuff. Never mind. Yeah, you have to level your way through the new 5 or 10 levels that they put with the expansion. So everybody is kind of like stuck at like, oh yeah, my mythic raiding gear is like good enough for LFR now. Oops. Like, and you have to start again and kind of get everything from scratch. But this time, I mean, we came back and we were like basically ready for normal raids with the stuff that we had from attempts at heroic raids in season 1. And this is season 3.
Yeah, I think that happened maybe a little bit in season 2, but I will agree that the curve felt. I mean, it's nice. Like, it's nice to be able to just jump into content. I do get that, but I would say it's probably a little undertuned. By like the second, like, here's the thing for me, like keys, right? Keys are, in season 1, we did keys all the time. Like every week we were working on keys. We were pushing. By the end of the season, we were pushing like close to 20s, right? 18s. I don't know that we ever got a 20, but we were close, right? We were up in the 18s, 20s.
Yeah.
By week 2, people were pushing 20s in season 3.
Well, sure. And even by week, whatever we're on now, 3 or 4 that we're in now, we are doing 15s without much trouble.
Yeah. And I would say we're doing 15s. We could probably push a little higher if we really wanted to try, but like, it's hard to find a key under a 15 in week 2 or 3.
Right. Yeah. The group finder, everybody's posting, oh, plus 20 needs whatever. Like, And you're like, oh, well, I don't want to go for that right this second. Like, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Almost there.
Well, so, it's fine. I would say it ramped up a little fast, and I think people are going to get bored pretty quickly. But again, what that really means, I think, and you've experienced this recently, is getting an alt like up and geared and playing a different class really easy right now.
True. And it's a great time to kind of gather that little stable of alts, like to have, hey, I want to have a monk. I want to have a priest. I want to have a druid, whatever. Like, I want to have all these things that are at like playable baselines so that when that next expansion comes out, all you have to do is get them 10 more levels. And that's not like prohibitively difficult. Whereas when you're looking at something like, oh, I have a level 22 priest out there, but I don't really feel like playing through 50 levels with it. That seems like a pain. So you just never do. Now is the time. Like, this is the time to be able to experiment a little bit and try some stuff and be like, oh yeah, no problem. I got that, priest up to level, maybe it goes to level 60 and the max is 70. And you're like, whatever. It's fine.
Speaking of experimenting and trying stuff out.
Oh, transition.
See, I caught you there. I caught it. We would like to, I don't think it's under any NDAs or anything like that. If it is, oops. But Chris, a friend of ours, and I played Skull and Bones this past weekend.
Yes, we did play that game. That is the thing we did do.
Skull and Bones has a history. It's this game from Ubisoft who have been rumored to have been working on this game since Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And it's essentially they took like the pirate element of that game and they said, oh, these boats are really cool. People are really liking the boat, like drive, the ship element of Black Flag. We should make an entire game out of it. And it's not a terrible idea. It was, I would say, solid baseline, right? Black Flag introduced the ship mechanic. Odyssey kind of continued it. The Valhalla also did, this elements of ships in an Assassin's Creed game. It's a fun, like it's a fun mechanic. But they took it and they tried to make a full game out of it. I'm not going to get into how it all was, but just as an indication, this is the third time during the Game Awards last week. This is the third time they have announced a release date. And this time I think it's real. I think it's going to happen this time, but every time in the past that they have announced a release date, they have pulled back because either it wasn't ready, or I think the last time it wasn't so much about bugs or anything. It was more about like, people are like, what is this game? It's not fun. So it's just been marred with a lot of history that maybe this game isn't quite good.
That's an excellent recap of the history of the game. And I barely know the history of the game. I know that we have mentioned it several times on this show because it is... what it looks like is the cross between Assassin's Creed and Sea of Thieves, which sounds like a great idea in general. However, it's all dependent on the execution. And I'm not sure, having played this, we played it for, I should launch the game and see what my timer says. Cause that was the other thing. This thing was a beta, and if one person got in the beta, they could share it with two other people, and it was a 6-hour beta. It was limited. There was a timer on the menu that said you have this much time left to play, and every time you went back to the menu, it would show you the countdown clock as if like it was this big looming thing. And any time a game starts with like a beta or a demo, like that, especially a beta though, that says you can only play this for this long. Like the way to limit a beta is to limit the content, not to limit the time.
You're right. But like 6 hours, fine, whatever. Like you don't want like the beta to be everything, but like the beta was only 3 days long. It's not like it's an ongoing beta and you can play your 6 hours whenever. It was from Friday to Monday. Like that's it. So like, let someone play all weekend. Fine, whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Like why was it also time limited if it was between a very tight set of dates? I don't get it.
Well, and even they could have just said, hey, you can only get quests through the first, quest line or whatever, right? And then there's nothing to do except PvP. But don't worry, there's going to be more in the real game. I don't know how this ended, because we played it for, I don't know, an hour and a half, and we didn't get to the end of the content in the beta. So I don't know where this one ended, but like, I don't think it needed to have a timer on it.
No, it didn't make any sense. Here's the thing. You introed like what I thought this was really well. It should have been, it was, at least from what I understood without playing it, sounded like an Assassin's Creed mixed with Sea of Thieves. And that would have been very cool, right? Drive the boat. You got people on the boat. You got friends on the boat. You shoot cannons, you do quests, whatever. Like, that sounded fun. In a world where, the art is a little bit more realistic, it's like kind of an established Assassin's, like timeline or whatever. Like, it all just sounded good. Like an Assassin, like a Sea of Thieves game in an Assassin's Creed world with an Assassin's Creed art style with, maybe Assassin's Creed kind of like movement mechanics. Fine. Great. Do that. What it ended up being was like the boat mechanics from an Assassin's Creed game where you drove the boat in third person, like way back, not a co-op game. Like it wasn't like Sea of Thieves where someone else got on your boat and then helped you manage or do your like shoot things or boat. It was like multiple people just had boats. Like you would drive as a fleet, right? But that's not how it ended up. And like, it was not anything like Sea of Thieves. And I think they missed the mark so hard on that by what they were advertising. Like, I just don't think what we got was what I was expecting. And that made for a really kind of like bad, because I went into it was like, guys, let's play this together. Let's have fun. Like, let's go experience this together. And like, after I played it, I was like, this is not a terrible thing, but like not what I expected and not something I would play with friends.
Right. And that's what you said. You said like, oh, I would be interested in this as a single player game, like if it wasn't an online thing. However, I think this game is so built around its online features that they can't make an offline version. Like it doesn't have quite enough plot, I don't think, at least from what I could tell, to understand like that my character has anything to do with anything other than kind of like Sea of Thieves, where you're just like, oh, you're a pirate, you got stuff to do. There's some people that'll sell you some stuff, but like there were some hints of story, but mostly it was just, oh, you got to go talk to the shipwright, get a ship. Oh, you got to go talk to the blacksmith, get some cannons. Oh, you got to go talk to this person, get some stuff. Like, it wasn't that involved. And yes, we were early on. Yes, it was a beta, I know, but like, I didn't feel like any of that was building up towards anything kind of worthwhile. Like, it was like, oh, you have a generic infamy rating and your infamy rating goes up and down based on stuff you do, like quests you do, basically. And I was like, okay, cool. That's kind of like your persistent, gold amount in Sea of Thieves. Like every session you can like play this stuff and get some stuff. But I don't know. I didn't find it to be compelling, I would say, by the time that we were playing it. And what you said about like, you're just driving boats was absolutely what I felt. And it was so weird because I couldn't even figure out how to shoot for the first while because the tutorial was broken when I was doing it. So I was like sailing around and like I was supposed to be sinking some ships in the tutorial, and I didn't realize that you had to hold right click to aim down sights of your boat, and then you had to shoot with left click like a shooter, like while you're in a boat, because you're doing all the jobs. I didn't like that.
I kind of get that though, because that's how you play the Assassin's Creed like boat mechanics. Like that was from Assassin's Creed.
Oh, okay.
Like that's like they didn't change that mechanic, right? Like that's just how it was. So that one fine, whatever. Like I'm fine with that. Like I get it. In the end, it whatever. But like this game didn't know what it wanted to be. And I think that's a result of like the history this game has had. I don't know that I mentioned it, but like this game has also gone through a lot of turnover in terms of like game directors and, people working on it. It didn't like choose what it wanted to be. Like, to your point, like, is it a story game? Like, it kind of felt like a story game. Like, it kind of felt like Assassin's Creed story game, But at the same time, like, there wasn't enough of it because there was also this multiplayer element and this like PvP element to it, which is kind of coming from the Sea of Thieves world. Like, this game does not have an identity. It did not know what it wanted to be. And I think that's just like, it's going to be its downfall. I don't think it's going to do well. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I would try it for like $5. I think that's like my price point for this game is $5, maybe a weekend or two, you know, see how it is when it actually comes out in 5 years, or maybe it gets included in some humble bundle or something. Like, that's the level of interest I have in this game. Like, I think it's there. Like, I would love to play a little bit more, again, by myself. Like, I don't think this is a co-op game at all. Like, it's just not, it doesn't make any sense to me. But it just, I would have loved if they would have taken Assassin's Creed Black Flag and been like, oh, this is cool. We should just do more piratey stuff and like maybe add a little bit. Like, some of the mechanics they had were cool. Like, oh, you could choose different kinds of cannons, and they had different strengths and weaknesses, and they, you know, some were really big, like short range, and some were, you know, small and long range, and like you could outfit your ship how you wanted, and you could add attachments to it, and like it would, you know, they were like power-ups. And I think a lot of that was really cool, like ideas around customizing your pirate ship, essentially.
Yeah, I loved that whole thing. Like, the ship layout thing where you got to choose which position you put which cannons was really cool. I did really like that. And I noticed that when you're doing the little aim down sights thing, you can see which bank of cannons it's going to fire. There's like a dotted line in the UI that like shows you like, oh, if you know, swivel to the left or right here and cross this line, you'll be shooting from a different bank of cannons that has a different reload timer. So you could actually like play that, and almost like spells in an MMO, like where they have cooldowns. That was neat, right? It was well done, and I really did like that ship. The thing where I could be like, oh yeah, let me place these things on my ship from like a top down view and like customize it a little bit. I kind of wish that they would do something like that in Sea of Thieves, like if they were gonna let you customize cannons, which they don't. Like, it's all cosmetic, whatever. But
I think that's the perfect segue or perfect point, because the friend we were playing with said one thing this entire playthrough. He said, the value of this game is that hopefully Sea of Thieves sees the things they did well and copies it. And I can absolutely see Sea of Thieves going, oh man, some like customization of like different types of cannons. Like, that would be cool. Like, we could do that. Like, it doesn't have to save it. It should just be part of your ship, right? Like, oh, that's your ship configuration. Or when you load in, you just get to choose, like, it doesn't even have to cost anything. You just choose which type of cannons you want for which spots. And that would be a cool, like thing that Sea of Thieves can do. There were a couple other things that were like kind of cool. I can't remember any of them, but there were just like little things on like ship management and boat management and, you know, customization that I think Sea of Thieves could take, and it would be like the value of that game would be served.
Yeah. So long story short, we played the game. We didn't love it. Didn't hate it, but didn't love it enough to buy it, especially not for what, $60 or something is a real game.
It's a full price game.
Yeah, and they kept trying to get you to buy the collector's edition for $100, and I was like, that is not worth it.
Way. $5. Wouldn't recommend it. If it comes for free with something, or if it's on super duper sale, that's the time to pick it up. Chris, are you ready to take a little nap? You're just going to take a little nap?
Yeah, I'm going to go get a drink. I'll be back in a little while.
Listen, I love to talk about Warframe. It's here's why. And this is what I wanted to talk about. Maybe we can expand the discussion a little bit into something wider than Warframe. But why, first of all, why am I talking about Warframe? Warframe had a story content update. It's whispers in the walls. You would understand what that means if you play. That doesn't matter. It's a new like cinematic story quest line, right? And they've been doing it kind of every 6 months. They've been on a really good release cycle. But that's why I'm talking about it. I played it, and I would like to talk about maybe it, but in a grander discussion. And here's what I want to kind of say. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I said, why do you like video games? Like, what is it about video games that you enjoy? And maybe that's a good question for you, Chris. Like, how do you know that you're enjoying your time with video games. For me, it breaks out into two different things, right? One, I play games to play with other people. And the reason I like playing with other people is because it's a shared experience. You have fun, you laugh, friendships, like just that social interaction is fun. But then why do you play? And for me, Warframe is very much like a solo game, right? No one plays it with me. I play in public lobbies.
Yeah, that's probably my fault.
Yes. I play in public lobbies. I play with other people, but generally Warframe is a solo game, right? So why do I choose to play solo games? And like, how do I know that I'm enjoying it? And why do I want to keep coming back to it? And Whispers in the Walls reminded me of why I love Warframe and why I love a lot of other single player games. There's an episode. It's one of my favorite titles of P&A, of an episode of P&A. It was titled Goosebumps Per Hour.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I remember the title. I don't necessarily remember the subject.
It happened while I was it happened while I was playing Warframe again. The new Whispers in the Walls update it's a like cinematic kind of story, like expansion, whatever, new story content. It's only like an hour to an hour and a half long. It's not that long. But during that like hour and a half, I probably got goosebumps 3 or 4 times. Just by what was happening, the music, the scene, the emotion of the character. Like it was just so good. It was just so good. And it reminded me why I love Warframe. That happens almost every cinematic story quest with me for Warframe. I very much enjoy the story. I very much enjoy how DE puts the story together, right? I think it's also like certain people like the artist or the whatever it is, like just the way they put their stories together. I just love it so much. And I started to compare that a little bit to like God of War, right? Because that's another single player game I really loved. And I think the same thing is true, right? Like it's just one of those things that I really connect with. And I think it's a very physical reaction that I measure like goosebumps per hour as a real metric of a single player game. And I just have this feeling that you don't share the same metric. So I guess I ask you the question then, how do you know if you've enjoyed a single player game?
That's a very interesting question, and I'm glad that you've twisted it this way. I was not prepared for this question, but I will try to answer it live.
Yeah, sorry.
I will say that I think I like a single player game. Well, I do like it if it has a compelling story that I can kind of, I don't necessarily have to identify with the characters, but I want to kind of feel like the story is intentional. And I like single player games to have stories that are self-contained, right? I don't like a single player game to have a story that ends on some cliffhanger, which doesn't happen that often, right? Usually there's a final boss and stuff happens and whatever. But I'm thinking back to single player games like the Uncharted games, which I absolutely loved, especially like 3 and 4 specifically. And then also God of War, to your point, and both of them, right? God of War and Ragnarok, which I have now finished, which I think I said, but now if I didn't, I have finished God of War Ragnarok. Very much enjoyed it.
As promised.
Yes, as promised. Yes. The thing I go for with story, like I like a good, compelling, exciting thing, but I think I really, for single player games, go for some more of the completionist stuff. Like if the trophy list isn't too insane, I'll go for like, all the little collectibles and things like that. Like I like the accomplishment of it, right? It's less about the goosebumps per hour and more about like the
checklist.
Yeah, the checklist and like, am I feeling like I'm good at this and like I'm making progress and I'm, I don't want to say like I'm just playing it to get it done because then I would play a lot more games because like, but it has to be fun. It has to be like engage my kind of skills brain a little bit. I like puzzly things also. That's why Uncharted is like perfect. And I don't play games in the hardest setting either. Like that's a long-standing point on this show is that we are not the hardcore, like play everything on the unforgiving mode. Because I do want to make progress, right? I want to get through, like I played on God of War. I played the give me grace mode, not give me a story, which is like the easiest mode, but like the one up from that. So I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit trying to figure out my answer to this question. But I don't play that many single player games. That's the other point.
Neither do I really. Here's an interesting point. As you were kind of talking, I kind of like noted that you said that you play single player games for, I mean, I'm going to do it. I do it every couple episodes, but here it is. You play single player games for that sense of pride and accomplishment, right? Like the accomplishment of finishing the trophies, platinuming a game on PlayStation, or solving the puzzles. And I will say, certain puzzle games, I would say I maybe feel that, but it doesn't keep me coming back over and over again. Like I think that's kind of why you love these puzzle games, right? Myst, Abduction, all of these games. I enjoy them, but I don't think they like drive me to keep coming back. I don't sit down at my computer and want to like I just have to keep playing it, right? At the same time, like over in like the World of Warcraft, the sense of pride and accomplishment in a multiplayer game of like doing better, right? Or winning or accomplishing something as a team. Oh, that gets me. I love that. I get you hear me in comms. I get so excited when we like hit a time or like upgrade a key or like get really close and we win, or we try something really hard and we do it, or we have 50 pulls on a boss and we finally kill it. Like I get really excited from that. But I don't get that same sense of pride and accomplishment from single player games. Single player games to me are much more about the story being told. And I just find that interesting, the difference there.
I should clarify, because I will not play all the Uncharted games on all the difficulties, because that's what you have to do to get the platinum. Like I don't go back and play them on the whatever the hardest mode is, I forget. But I won't do that. I think that the accomplishment is more experiencing the story and having that shared kind of cultural context point, because now I can say like, oh man, I really liked the story of God of War, and we can talk about it, and we can share like, oh, I was surprised when that happened. Like I guess another thing I'm thinking of is like I really value world building. Like I really like a coherent, consistent world. So like God of War has a very like coherent ish world where everything kind of has a reason and there's history and all that kind of stuff. I don't love to go lore spelunking, right? I don't like to go through all of the books in the library kind of thing. And you're talking about like Myst and Abduction and those puzzle games, like those exploration puzzle games, those kinds of things. For me, those are all about the world. It's not actually the puzzles themselves. Like I'm actually sort of bad at some of those puzzles. But I like that they, make it believable, right? They set all this stuff up as like, oh, this is something that somebody that was stranded on a desert island built out of bamboo and coconuts or whatever, right? And now it turns into a puzzle, and obviously it's a game, so it's somebody programmed it, whatever, but somebody thought about it and created a world that is internally consistent in those puzzle games to make things make sense. And I like that out of a good single player game also. Maybe that's why I struggle so much to identify with Warframe, because to me everything in Warframe is just insanity, and I don't care about the story, and all of the environments are all very alien and kind of weird, and I just don't get into them. They
do a very weird job in Warframe. I think it's because of how it started as a game, right? It started as the procedurally generated dungeons for power, for leveling, right? Like, and that was it. It was almost a mobile game. And then at a certain point in their history, they're like, we should do cinematic quests. Like that's what we should do. And that, that kind of became the driver to make sure that their retention was there, because it kept people coming back, like me. Hello, have you met me? Right. Every time they release a new story, like a new plot point, a new cinematic quest line, right? It kept players coming back. So that's what they're doing now. They didn't start that until kind of later in the game's development. So as a player, as you experience that, as you start the game, you're just like, what is going on? Like I'm not playing any story for the first 10 hours. So they've actually kind of addressed this in some recent stuff, and they've made it easier to kind of get into it and experience the story as a player rather than, have to level and grind and all of that stuff. And you can play Warframe as a slightly more story-based game now than you used to be able to. But I will say the story is whack. Like, it is so out there. And it is not quite as complicated as the story of World of Warcraft, but there's a lot of characters, and there's a lot of overlap, and there's a lot of characters that go by multiple names, and it's just like, what the heck is going on? And like, you have to really, like, once you start to get into it, you're like, okay, now I want to research it. I want to make sure I understand what's going on. Like, I want to get more into it. But I will say that, like, if you don't ever hit the point where you experience kind of that like drop off, like where you're just like, okay, now I'm in, like, if you never get there, like, I would say that's totally understandable. Like, the not caring about the story in Warframe is totally understandable.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever made it to that point. Like, I started off in that first thing where you're basically in your ship and on that little star map and back and forth to that, and then occasionally you go to those level up challenges or whatever, and then you beat that, or in my case, not beat it and get frustrated, and then you beat those eventually and level up and then do that again, like, a lot. And I think that's been most of my experience with Warframe, except for when we did the Deviri stuff with the kind of roguelike stuff, which I kind of enjoyed. Like, that was pretty fun.
Yeah, and I would say that they're trying to make that a more normal experience, right? Like, play the story and then do the leveling stuff in between, which is the way it should be experienced. I mean, like, that's the way it should be done. But there's a moment in the Warframe, like, there's a moment in the Warframe story where you're just like, oh my gosh. I mean, the other thing is, like, if you don't care for sci-fi and the weird stuff, like, if you don't get past it, it's just not as, like, if you don't pay attention during those cutscenes, like, you have to pay attention during those cutscenes. It's like the West Wing, man. You can't look away, right? Because so much is happening, and it's happening so fast. But, like, if you truly invest and get in, for me, it really does, it's really rewarding. But I don't want to sound like one of those guys that, like, oh man, you got to put like 500 hours in, because that's not what a game should be, right? You shouldn't have to do that. And if you don't really care for the base of a sci-fi, like the sci-fi story, and you have to accept that it is very fiction, right? Like, it's way, like, it's out there. If you don't get past that, like, you'll never get there. And that's what, I mean, it's just, that's what they've chosen to do. And I will say, normally I'm not very into that, but something happened in Warframe for me. Like, I took that plunge at some point in my past, and now I identify so hard with those characters. Like, not identify, but, like, I understand and am so invested in the characters in the story that every time something happens, every time there's a new kind of chapter, I get those goosebumps. I feel the story, and it's very cool for me. And, I would love for you to experience that. I would love for anyone else to experience that. But I understand that not everyone is going to get the same feeling.
I mean, I've played Destiny 2 and played through a lot of the story of Destiny 2 and stuck with that for the most part. But something about the combination of the wacky story plus the grindiness of Warframe, it just turns me off. And I know that Destiny has grindy gameplay too, but, like, I feel like their balance is a little better.
Yeah, but Destiny stories suck.
Except for the one. But yes, I'm with you there. Yes, they're not great.
There's one story that's good in that entire game.
Fine.
And I'm pretty sure they removed it.
Yeah, they did. They retired it or sunsetted it or whatever they did.
Like, there was one good story in that game, and hopefully the final shape follows up on it. Like, I'm hoping, I'm not going to play it. I'll watch someone else play it, but, like, I'm hoping that the final shape follows up on it, but it's not the same. It's not the same. I do want to give you a chance to talk about your single player, though. You just finished God of War Ragnarok. Non-spoiler review, Chris, like, good, because I will tell you, I just redid my computer room with everything in here. This is a little, it wasn't in the agenda, but I redid my computer room in here. I have my desk in a new spot. I bought a new TV stand. I'm going to move a TV up here, and I'm going to plug my PlayStation 5 in. It's going to be right next to my gaming PC.
Nice.
And I've got a reclining chair coming. I've got a setup coming. It is going to be, I'm ready for some holiday PS5 gameplay. And my first game is going to be God of War Ragnarok.
I would strongly endorse that plan. I think that's a great idea. It is a very, very good story game. and it has a very, very, I'm saying very too many times, but the story is excellent. It makes you care a lot about the characters and all the things going on. The acting and the kind of like performances by all of the people involved is wonderful. It has a West Wing tie-in, so you're going to love that.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is not spoilery because it happens in like literally the first 2 minutes of the game. And you've already played the first half hour and you didn't realize this. So I'm going to tell you again. Toby, Richard Schiff, is Odin. Like,
oh yeah, I knew this. Yeah.
It's the same guy. Like, and it's crazy now because, you know, with all of the game stuff, they do mocap and everything else. And so it's like basically him acting in this game. Like, it's essentially the character Toby from the West Wing. Like, he is Odin in the thing. Like, they could have said, whatever his last name is, you know, Toby as Odin. And I would have been like, yes, that's right. Not like Richard Schiff as Odin. So yeah. Yes, it is very good, and I cannot wait for you to finish this game. And I know that you're going to chew through it in like a week, so I'm very excited about that too, because there are a lot of things to talk about, and it's great. And I'm wondering if we should do a year late spoiler cast or something. But it's great.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. Is it? So I played the first. We both played the first one. It was a long time ago, but would you say it's better, worse, different? Like where would you put it kind of on the scale of the first one? Grander, smaller, more intimate story? Like,
I would say that the story itself is much more personal for the people involved. Like, there's more characters that you spend more time with, like in the first one, and this is not really a spoiler for a 5-year-old game at this point, a 7-year-old game. I don't know. But in the first one, you really, like, in terms of people you talk to, right? You have Kratos and Atreus, right? The two main characters that are with you all the time. You have Mimir, the talking head guy, right? And then you have, like, a couple of other people. You have the woman whose name I'm completely forgetting. Freya, there it is. I was thinking of the other woman, Kratos' wife, who you are going to spread the ashes of in the first game.
Right.
Right. So, but like in terms of like people with speaking parts, I've pretty much listed all of them in the first game, for the most part. I mean, yes, there's some
the two
villainy looking,
but like that's basically
Rock and Sindri. Yeah, they're there too. But like, you don't spend a lot of time hanging out with them, right? They're just kind of there, and you like interact with them as needed for the most part. In this game, like in the second one, there's another like 5 people that you talk to. Or 6 maybe, I don't know, including in addition to all of the people you've talked to in the first game
that are like regular characters.
Yeah, that you actually like will remember their names. Of course, I forgot Freya, but like, yes, that you will actually like,
okay, all right,
get involved in their story and care about their lives.
They expand the cast a little bit, and they're all, you're saying they're all intimate and part of the story, and I okay, I dig that.
Yeah, so I would say that it's definitely much more,
because
and
you
it's
didn't
like
want another like father son. We got that.
Yeah, check, right, done. No, it's not another. Although there are obviously elements of father and son.
Sure.
And there's Atreus is a little older now. I don't know what the ages are, but like he's kind of teenage now. Like, so there's dynamics with that, of course. But it's good, and they do a lot of like different things with like kind of point of view and things like that. So I think it's going to be, I think you're really going to like it. And I think it's a much more engaging narrative than even the first one was. The first one I think was big for like the scale and like, oh my gosh, I get to do that thing, right? Like I get to climb that giant statue of that giant thing and then jump off his nose or whatever. Like, that's really cool, and it's very dramatic, and it's like cinematic and a very set piecey kind of thing. This one is there's still some of that. I mean, there certainly is, but this one is much more around the story and the people than around the set pieces and the kind of scale of it.
That's exciting. That's good to hear. So
there's my non-spoilery hype review of God of War Ragnarok.
That was pretty hypey. I'm kind of excited.
I hope I haven't oversold it. But I enjoyed it, and I liked it, and I'm actually, that's my kind of holiday game break is going to be going back to the Valhalla free DLC mini expansion that they just released, which I have not started yet. So I'm looking forward to doing that. The single player game I thought you were going to talk about was Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which I picked up immediately after finishing God of War, because I don't know why, but I did, because the 2-hour rule.
No, we talked about it. It was the right choice.
Yes, exactly. I did that instead of Final Fantasy 16, and I am, I don't know, 85% of the way through the main story at this point.
Off topic, on topic, but off topic. Final Fan. By the way, we talked about it last week, but Final Fantasy won the score, or whatever. I did not notice, and I did not know this until kind of someone pointed it out. But Spider-Man 2 won nothing at the Game Awards, not a single award.
Whoa, that's interesting.
Yes, people are like, well, it's kind of Spider-Man 1 won some stuff, and Spider-Man 2, blah blah blah. Anyway. I anticipate it being a great game. I've heard it's a great game, but I just wanted to point out that, like, we didn't say it last week, but it won nothing. So I'm hoping that that's not indicative of anything. It doesn't seem to be based on the reviews and what people are saying. But it's just an interesting little tidbit.
That is very interesting. And I guess I didn't think about that. It is, I would say, again, I'm 80% of the way through the story. I can, sort of see where it's going.
Oh, you're close to done. You've done a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been kind of mainlining the story, though. I don't know why. I think the first one, I like played it a little bit and then did what I always do with PS5 games and like put it down and didn't play it for, 6 months and then came back and finished it. This one, I'm making a concerted effort to kind of play it in one like session. And by session, I mean 2 months instead of like over the course of a year. So I have played a lot of it and I've gotten through a lot of the story, and maybe the fact that I've been doing the story kind of nonstop is like burning me out of it a little bit, but I want to see what happens to these people. Like I want to see how they tell the story in the Spider-Man universe. I like that. The thing that frustrates me is when they keep making me do boss battles in between all this stuff and all this story stuff. So anyway, I'm enjoying the story. I think they're doing a good job with it.
They keep making me play the game instead of just watch the movie.
I mean, more or less, that's kind of how it goes.
Have you heard of Final Fantasy 16?
Well, see, we talked about this. This is anyway.
It's basically just a movie, I've heard.
Yeah, so that'll be next, right? If Final Fantasy 16 fits before Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Rebirth, whatever comes out, then if Final Fantasy 16 goes on sale over Christmas, that might happen.
Yeah.
But I will say that the reason that I want to keep going back to the story on Spider-Man is because it is amazingly cinematic. Like it's one of the first PS5 exclusives that was made only for the PS5. So like it's kind of the first one, and of course Insomniac is really good at kind of getting performance out of Sony consoles, right? They did Ratchet and Clank as a launch title. So that was an exclusive PS5, and that was also great. We talked about that on the show a long time ago when the PS5 came out, and it was great. This one, it's amazingly cinematic, and they do a really good job with all of the character animations and stuff, and it's a lot of close-ups on people's faces and stuff, and it's a lot of like, a lot of God of War, they do have a lot of cinematics, and they do a really good job of going between, player control and cinematic. But I feel like Spider-Man just leans into the like movie watching part even more, like where they like switch the camera angles up and they zoom in on people's faces, and they
shoot a movie.
Yeah, they basically do, right? They shoot a movie of Spider-Man stuff. And I like that. I mean, I like Spider-Man as a character. I like that kind of, Marvel's New York and that whole world. They do well with it. This one is weird because they have both kind of Peter and Miles, right? They kind of combine the Spider-Man and the Miles Morales games and then put both of those characters into this one game. But you can tell it's the Spider-Man game with Miles Morales, not the equal parts Spider-Man story, I guess I'd say. Which makes sense, right? It's titled Spider-Man 2, not Miles Morales 2. So if there is a Miles Morales 2, then you kind of expect that one to go the other way. But this one focuses much more on Peter than Miles. Miles is definitely there and definitely important in the story and definitely a big part of it. But the character that is going through an arc is much more Peter than Miles, I would say. Okay. They're trying to make a Miles thing happen, and I think it's not as effective as the Peter one.
Okay.
So, yeah. Trying to be a little non-spoiler here, but
yeah.
It's very good. It's very well animated. Like, it looks great. It's got a very it looks really good. It's got a lot of stuff to do. It's got a lot of collectibles and stuff. I'm probably going to platinum it just because I think it's not going to be that hard to do. But it is, I mean, all the reviews kind of said, all the like the professional reviews kind of said it's more of the same, which like it definitely is. It's more of the Spider-Man games. And if you like the Spider-Man games, it's more of those. If you don't like them, you won't like this.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I had heard that, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, they were great, excellent games. And this is a great, excellent game only because it is more of that. It's not anything new. It's not inventive. There's some new stuff, but it's not like it's revolutionary. It's more of that, which is okay. Like, I mean, in a similar way, God of War, I mean, again, I haven't played it, so I don't know, but like God of War Ragnarok looks like the same game, right? Like at a surface level, right? At a very surface level. So, I don't think that's ever a bad thing. I'm happy to see kind of sequels to things that are good. And I don't think that should be discouraged. At the same point, like it doesn't, like, does it deserve best game of the year or, like some revolutionary, like, does it best art? I mean, certainly not like best art direction or like best, the game of the year is debatable. Like the sequels of things, they are good. They should be praised, but like they're not revolutionary and it would be, they have a higher hill to climb in terms of like awards because we've experienced them before. So it's just, I just wonder, like, are these, I don't want to call them expansions or DLCs, but like, that's kind of what it feels like, right?
Kind of a little bit. Like if this was a, I don't know, $20 to $40 DLC off of the Spider-Man games, I could believe that as, something that they would do, but it does have a lot of technical upgrades, I would say, right? So there's a lot of engine work that you can tell has gone into it too. So it makes sense for it to be its own kind of thing. And it is of the length of a standalone game. Like Miles Morales was a little shorter than the first Spider-Man. And I think this one is probably on par with the first Spider-Man-ish in terms of, duration. I actually, thinking back on it a little bit, I'm like, I've now reached the part in the story where I care a lot about what's happening, but there's like, they always kind of do this in Marvel game, well, Spider-Man games specifically, right? They have kind of like a one big bad that kind of is like the fake out for the real big bad. And like, I feel like we spent too long on the fake out guy. Like, I don't know. I would have appreciated us doing that a little less, but it's fine. Only because I know that I'm 80% of the way through because the PS5 tells you that. So if I didn't know that and I was like, oh, this could go on for a while, right? Then I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. It's going to go great. But like knowing that I only have probably, 4 more hours of story content or less, like, I guess I must have less. It must be like 2 hours of story content if it's anyway, because it's not a 40-hour game. That is a little disappointing of like, oh, they're going to wrap this part of this up kind of too quickly for my taste, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but that's fine. It's still fun. It's still a fun game. It's good. Like I said, I'm going to try to platinum it. Mostly because I can, and I can't on a lot of games lately just based on time and whatever, but this one feels attainable. So, I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay. Well, this has turned into another, we're going to do a short little podcast about what we're talking about, what we're playing and stuff. And ended up being an hour long. So you're welcome, everyone. Chris and I are terrible at keeping things short and light. And we have dug into, I'm surprised. Chris
this turned into a therapy session.
Yeah. A really deep question about single player games. So you're welcome for that.
I'm going to think about that and maybe come up with a better answer next time. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it again. You know what you guys could do that are listening? You could let us know. How do you know that you're enjoying your time playing video game? Let us know by joining our Discord, which you can get to at discord.pnapodcast.com.
If you want to read our show notes or find any of our older episodes, you can visit our website at pnapodcast.com. That's P, the letter N, the letter A, podcast.com.
If you're enjoying the show, we would love if you could share it with some others that might enjoy it as well.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. Breaking news, Jason, as we've been recording. Well, not quite as we've been recording, but pretty close. The Steam year in review is out. And I know we talked at the beginning of this episode that we were going to do year in review stuff next episode, but this one just came out and I don't think we have that much to say. So I figured we could toss it in the post show.
Yeah, I think we did this last year where we aren't maybe you are, right? Because of the Steam Deck, but like I have become less and less of a Steam user in recent years.
I probably have become less of a Steam user than I have been in the past, but I'm still kind of up there in some cases, depending on how you believe your interview page here.
Should we go from top to bottom?
Yeah, I mean, we can pull out some of the more interesting highlights, I think. The top line number is the number of games played in giant letters here. So
I have a feeling yours is going to be much higher than mine.
Mine is 26.
Mine's 13.
Oh.
7 new games.
Mine's 11 new games and 1 demo.
Oh, I didn't have any demos.
Well, yeah, I've 1 demo.
Yeah, I think that's higher than last year. I think when we got these numbers last year, I had like 4. I mean, it is
trending.
It is
up.
higher than it. Yeah, it's trending up, which is good. I think there was a lot of those. I think were for a couple hours, maybe on the Steam Deck. I do think that this number is getting, for me, impacted by the Steam Deck. I think those new games probably are all Humble Bundle except for Baldur's Gate. So yeah.
I just pulled up my last year. I had 43 games played last year, so now I have 26.
Whoa.
So yeah,
okay.
we're on a downward trend for me.
Oh, can you just change the year at the end to get last year's?
Oh, I don't know. You could try. Maybe that'll work.
You totally
Yes.
can. I'm totally wrong because my year in review last year was 41 games played.
Remember the Steam Deck came out last year, and I feel like we were playing more things on Steam because that was last year.
Yeah, man. Oh, man.
Anyway.
Yeah, you can't get 2021. Okay, well, I was wrong. Trending downwards in terms of number of games played. So
I think the most interesting stat for the two of us is the percentage played with keyboard and mouse versus controller.
Oh, where is that?
For me, that's the top right panel of the main 6 on the front page.
No, yeah, I don't have that one. Interesting.
Oh, because you played everything with keyboard and mouse?
I was going to say probably 100%. No, I know I played some Steam Deck games. Like, I think.
Probably, maybe. Well, anyway, mine was 72% keyboard and mouse and 28% controller.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
But the controller includes the Steam Deck, and I guess I would have thought I had more time on the Steam Deck than that, but that's okay.
Well, I mean, you played all that Dota this year.
Honestly, that's what it was, because it does tell you, like, later on in the thing, it kind of breaks down for you what games you played and, like, different times and stuff. And for me, it was Dota and Baldur's Gate were my keyboard and mouse games, and V Rising. So, yeah, most of my things were kind of PC, whatever, keyboard and mouse games.
Yeah, yeah. What were your, like, you see them down below. What were your 2 biggest games of the year, you would say, on Steam? Or 3 or 4? I don't know. I have 4 major kind of Steam games this year.
I have 3. Dota 2, V Rising, and Rogue Book is what it shows me.
I had Remnant 2 was a big game for me this year on Steam. Wayfinder was the other big one. I spent a couple of hours or lots of hours in that. And then Baldur's Gate and Endless Dungeon is the other one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Endless Dungeon, I had time in that, but apparently it wasn't enough to make the top 3 for me. Endless Dungeon was my most played with a controller game, though, because I played it exclusively with a controller.
Well, do you have your longest streak in here? This is an interesting one for me.
My longest daily streak was 22 days.
Oh my gosh, Chris.
Yeah, but 6 different games. And 2
Mine
of those were demos.
3 for one game.
Wow, okay.
And it was Endless Dungeon.
Huh. Yeah, for me, it was, I had Dota and Rocket League and Baldur's Gate and Endless Dungeon and a couple of demos.
Wow.
But that was because it was from mid-October to first week of November. So 3 weeks starting October 16th, basically. And that was during the International when I was playing a lot of Dota to try to get the drops and stuff for the International. So it makes sense. Like, I understand. But it says, during this 22-day thing, I played 6 different games.
Endless Dungeon was my number 1 game of 2023.
Huh. Cool. For me, it was Dota.
I'm not surprised.